Nathan, thanks for joining the AI Outcomes podcast. Good to see you. It's been a while. I seem to remember possibly Istanbul was the last time we were with one another. Maybe on some sort of tour
Yeah,
of the Bosphorus, as I
yeah,
seem to remember. It was jolly good. But yeah, no, it's good to see you, mate. How you doing?
yeah, really well. Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.
Yeah, no worries. Look, like I said when I reached out to you, I'm keen to have 2026 kind of be the year where we focus AI outcomes on where AI meets sales. And as you know, there's lots of salespeople listening to this podcast. It's my background. I know it's your background. We've known each other for quite a few years now, and yeah, it's always good to get your view on things, Nathan. I know you're working in AI now as well, so I'm really interested in that aspect as well. But let's just kind of shoot the breeze a little bit, but also get into some of those topics around AI and sales. What does that mean? What are the outcomes? What are the metrics? And I think right now you're CRO for a company that's also looking at AI for SMEs. So
Yeah,
that sounds really interesting. But look, give everyone a bit of your background, please, Nathan.
yeah. So I've been working in sales for more years than I'd care to admit. I think, do you know what? I think it's 10 years since we first met, Ben. I
Must
think
be,
it's possibly,
yeah.
that's scary, isn't it? So largely in the tech space, both in the corporate world and in the startup world. So seen a few things in that time. Things have certainly changed in that time. And I'm sure we'll get into it. But one thing that I've found is that there's never been a shortage of tools in sales in that time, meaningful and meaningless. But yeah, lots changed. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, and you raise tools in sales space. Yeah, that's been it. It's been metric after metric after new CRM after the next tool and the next tool,
Yeah.
all promising to be the
Yeah.
magic kind of bullet for salespeople. It's added so much noise over the years. I
Yeah.
just, what value have sales really got out of it over
Yeah.
the years? And then we've got a plethora of AI agents and tools now on the market. How do
Yeah.
you see the landscape right now, Nathan, from your perspective?
Well, there's not a shortage of tools, is there? That's one thing that I think we can all agree on. You've touched on a few. There's been CRMs and extensions into CRMs, dialers, and I think one of the things that they have in common is activity that's been impacted, more activity, and that's great. But in my view of where the landscape is today, tools that aid activity aren't what we need.
Hey, everybody, sorry for the interruption, but if you are in a sales role or sales management role, head on over to bendrakes.com. You will find all of my training content, all really great videos that I've put together for you. There's also a bunch of free stuff. You can get all my free content, all my walks and talks. You'll get so much value from them. Maybe you want to talk about implementing AI in your business. Again, go to bendrakes.com. Go to my AI Catalyst page, book a call with me, and let's go through it. I'm giving everybody an introductory discount of a 20% off anything that you want to buy on my platform. Just put in the code SAVE20 at checkout. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
Tools that aid outcomes and clarity, that's where the focus needs to be. And yeah, so as much as there are lots of tools out there, I think there's lots of things creating noise. What are the things that we're doing with what I'm with my gig at the moment is trying to differentiate in that regard. So yeah, I think tools great, but what are we using them for? We're using them for the sake of tools, because a lot of organizations that I've worked in, they've got more than they need, and they're not using most of it. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the culture that we're in, isn't it, at the moment?
Well, it's been that way for years. The point that you make about more than you need. All these platforms. Look at Sales Navigator, Salesforce. you
Yeah.
know, all these platforms constantly developing new functionality, and majority of it not being used by most organizations who pay for it.
Yeah.
And then kind of like almost like those vanity measures
Exactly. Yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
of
Yeah.
activity and my
Yeah.
pipeline and all this wonderful things I'm actually doing. And
Yeah.
I just wonder how many of those tools are just about measuring a kind of lack of success rather than giving insights and helpful value to the sales force to actually go right. And
Yeah.
then
Absolutely.
after the tool did, that's when
Yeah.
I messaged my customer, because without the customer part being engaged in that, there wasn't any value. That's kind of like
No.
I'm a bit of a cynic about these
Yeah.
CRMs and stuff like that, really.
And you know what? I am as well, because, we can spend a lot of time giving off an appearance that we're doing the right things. And we do that by, look how busy I am. But what have we actually done? What have we actually achieved? And I think, if speaking of AI, if AI is just making us busier, then it's failed.
Mm.
Put it down. We shouldn't use it that way. If it's giving you more clarity, more visibility, more insights in your pipeline, then great. It should be there, though, to augment and amplify, not replace that human. One of the things I love about AI, Ben, is that it doesn't divide opinion. Right? You walk into a room and mention AI, and you don't get 10 different opinions. You do, and I've certainly been walking into those rooms of late. And I'm of the old school, right? In sales, people buy from people, and I really believe in that. And I don't think that's changed. I don't think that should change. So if AI is helping us to enhance that element and giving us clarity around that element, then we should embrace it. If it's not, then I think we should think twice before we adopt it in our businesses.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it should provide intelligence into whatever stage you are at in the sales cycle. And yeah, my background's similar to yours. I'm technology, but also outsourcing sales. And so I'm looking for anything that can provide me with more intelligence to help me refine my approach to different customers in different markets.
Yeah.
If the AI is doing that, I love it. What I saw from the early AI tools and widgets that were cropping up on, say, Microsoft Copilot, LinkedIn, it's saying, do you want me to draft an email for you? Do you want me to draft a message? And I'm like, no, I definitely don't
Yeah.
want you to
Right.
draft the. But
Yeah.
to your point, what I think takes the human out of the loop is when the GPT or the Copilot or the LinkedIn widget is suddenly writing stuff to your customers. It's like, no,
Yeah.
that
Because
is you've lost the value of the human in the loop.
absolutely. And AI should, the reality with AI is good at a lot of things. What it doesn't do is it doesn't have judgment,
Yeah.
or it's not aware of trust. And that, as sales professionals, that's a skill, that's a value add that we work hard to be able to build: integrity, values, trust, being able to judge. So if you're using it in that way, you've gone down the wrong road, is my view. And that's very much the value of what we're trying to build at NedTech as well, which I'm sure we'll come on to. um yeah, if it's reducing cognitive overload to increase judgment or improve judgment, brilliant. But when you're trying to, this is going to do the role, no, can't go there. It can't go there. That's where the finesse is for me as sales professionals.
Yeah, yeah, and let's get into what how your tooling is working. But yeah, I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Reducing cognitive overload is a really nice way of putting it. So I have this large language model, which is generally going to be the interface for the type of generative AI products that a salesperson will use. I have the large language model capability. It brings insight
Yeah.
into and makes me more intelligent, me understand, empathize with, understand my customer's business, so I can add much more specific value. With now I've used my AI, I'm like all of a sudden PhD level in banking or insurance or retail or public
Yeah.
sector, whatever it might be, wherever my customer exists. I understand the job role better of the customer. Maybe I'm in a prospecting motion with because of my AI. So it's making me much more intelligent. Then you said about, yeah, reducing that cognitive overload, because the other big barrier that I'm sure everyone in sales listening to this will say, yep, is just too much noise, too busy, not enough time just to sit there and focus
Yeah.
on those early sales stage conversations with these
Yeah.
different customers, because they're doing sales stage 4 and 5, get it over the line, biggest deals closing soonest focus. So
Yeah.
yeah, that I'm really keen to explore your thoughts around that.
I think, in terms of providing insights from a prep perspective, amazing. In terms of automating some of the administrative tasks that salespeople everywhere their ears will be pricking at that, less admin. I think, yeah, look, let's lean into that. It can really provide that. But unless it's providing a space where we are getting into the room more often and being able to, this is kind of where sales comes to the forefront now. We really step up. AI can help us do that, but it's not going to do it for us. And nor should it ever. And I'm quite passionate about that. I think, now's the time to sharpen what we're really about as people, to humanize, there's nothing like getting in a room with someone and looking in the whites of their eyes and trying to really understand what is it that you're trying to do here. Because if I can't impact that, then let's just call it quits. AI will never be able to do that. It might help give me some good insights. It might help give me some good inroads within those conversations, but ultimately it's never going to be able to build that relationship with someone. And that's what it's still a relationship game, in my view.
Yeah, I totally agree. And my perspective on that is, yeah, people buy from people. I used to think people buy from people that they like. And after sitting there mulling over these things as I do, I think it's people buy from people they trust and respect.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily need to be like, but that dimension will exist until such a time that the customers, or a sea of robots and large language models and agents themselves, the whole time you've actually got a human on the customer side, you've got the people buy from people dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
let's get into NedTech, what you're doing at the moment. Your CRO over at NedTech.
Yeah.
Looks really interesting. I was just kind of doing my research. Seems like it's SME focused. I think there's a
Yeah.
platform called Helm that looks like
Right.
it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm always very interested when things are SME focused,
Yeah.
which is small to medium enterprise in our parlance, because it's got to deliver value straight away. Everyone's cost conscious in that whole market, right? But give us an
Yeah.
overview of your current
Yeah.
platform there, Nathan.
Yeah, sure. NedTech and subsequently Helm, which is the AI workforce platform that we're developing, it's kind of born out of an idea from our CEO while he was on the beach, as those ideas often come to you, really out of the pain that he was experiencing in some of the SMEs that he's been owning and running around automation and using other AI tools, and just realizing that look, it's not really a level playing field when it comes to enterprise and SME. SME is a different challenge. You're limited by so many means, but one of the things you're not limited in is ambition. That's not the reason why SMEs fail or struggle. It's because they've got cognitive overload. Ultimately, that's what they have. They don't have huge budgets. What if we take AI and instead of, just having prompts where we have to ask lots of questions and it does our Google searches for us, what if we actually create a team of multi-agent sort of that have roles where there's a layer of orchestration, and these teams, we're now talking about workflows. And that's where it started, really. why SMEs? It's the backbone of the economy. You know, I think the stats are is in the 90% of the economy. So it's hugely important. So we're quite passionate about that because we're born out of it. I've spent a lot of my career working within SMEs and I've seen the difference. So we want to sort of provide that goodness and that value there, first and foremost from what we've been doing, but they're on. And so the platform Helm is an AI workforce. And ultimately, here's what it says on the tin. What it's going to do is it's going to provide you employees effectively to replace people. No. And we want to be really clear about that. It's not about replacing people. It's about amplifying teams that don't have perhaps the skill sets, perhaps they don't have the budgets to hire, or even if they do, their time constraints around that. So it's about amplifying their abilities to be able to have the types of growth so they can hit their growth targets effectively. So yeah, we could talk about that for a while, but in a nutshell, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And just as a business owner myself, if I think about just naturally what I did with AI was I just set up a whole bunch of projects, which I then realized I was actually setting up some specific AI agents, putting in the instructions in each project's context window. This is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to answer the question.
Yeah.
And the value. And actually, you're absolutely right. I was just taking my core workflows and trying to make them more efficient.
Yeah.
Using a giant, I set all that up originally in ChatGPT, and it started being useful, but it just was still quite clunky. It didn't feel like there was nothing like automated in there.
Yeah.
So what you're suggesting sounds really interesting. So how does it work if people listening to this podcast are like, yeah, I'm using Claude, I'm using Grok, I'm using ChatGPT? Why would they consider your product and tooling over one of those sort of big generic platforms?
Well, those platforms are all, reliant on prompts. They're chatbots. That's what it is. That's not what Helm is. Like I said, Helm is built on multiple LLMs. So it's multi-agent, it's role specific. It's going to actually do work for you as well. And it's going to, the orchestration layer is the secret sauce, if you like. It's what we've done with those multi-agents that is kind of dynamic and different. So across departments, there's going to be cohesion and integration as well. So like I say, it's about creating workflows, not just loads of prompts, which you then have to keep going and updating and then going away and doing things yourself.
Yeah, and does that integrate with your software? Like if people have got Microsoft Office 365 and Google Slides and all these different types of tooling, is there a level of integration? Because I've not seen even Claude Cowork, which everyone's kind of like going crazy about being released last week. I mean, I'm in the business, sort of in the sort of throes of setting up and getting the agent on my Mac.
Yeah.
But I asked it, will you go look at my emails? Will you look at my calendar? And it said, no, we haven't got that integration.
Yeah. No, it will. It will have that level of integration. What we don't want to do, though, is integration for the sake of integration. So one of the things that we're actively doing is building out a community of founders that we're working with. It's one thing to think we've got a great idea and we've produced a great product. We think,
Yeah.
and then you find that you've created something that no one wants or needs. We're actively building out a community of founders where we're working with them to say, what integration is needed, and that's called the Helm Founding 50. And we're really excited about that because what we want to do this right, not fast. So integration, where does it end? What do we really need? The answer is yes, it will. What with, we're going to find out. And there's not really any limits to that. It's just about, is there the need there? So that's our current step, really. That's where we are in the life cycle.
Yeah. So you got the founding 50. That's a really nice term, actually. Reminds me of my foundation customers that I always used to think, yeah, moving into a new market. I've got my foundation customer who I'm saying, hey, I can we learn on this together, co-create together. How's that working in practical terms? The founding 50, Nathan.
It's quite early stages, but what I'm finding is, when you build something like this, you think is all about what you're doing, and then you realize, oh, when you build a community, it's about what everyone's doing. And so I was having a conversation just this morning, actually, with a CTO, and what he said is, so this is like a business community where the tech almost becomes irrelevant. My heart started to beat quite fast at that point. I don't want it to be irrelevant. But I thought, yeah, you know what? You're right. We want to understand what are the real challenges. If we're going to be outcome driven, what are the outcomes that we need to achieve? So we're kind of building out a business community, really. It's about partnerships. I've always felt with the project that we've got that we kind of wanted to be for SMEs by SMEs. And that's kind of a mantra that we've got. So yeah, it's a nice little community that we're building out, but it is still very early stages.
Yeah, okay. So let's go to our list of topics that we had, and let's just sort of pick these off one by one because I think they're really interesting. So we kind of covered from sales tools to sales outcomes, haven't we? Like, and you've said in there, AI only matters if it reduces friction, it improves decision quality, not just activity. And I think that is a breath of fresh air to the sales community because the sales community listening to this will be like, no, most of my tools I'm just using for activity. I'm doing it because I'm told to. So
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. Um, You've also mentioned what AI gets wrong about sales, and you put in brackets so far. So why prompt-based AI and generic AI SDRs miss the reality of trust, timing, and human judgment in sales. How are you guys approaching that? I think we've totally agreed on that as a principle. People buy from people, but how are you gonna view this from a NedTech perspective when you start actually trying to build a tool that doesn't make that mistake?
What we're trying to build is a workforce, and with a workforce, onboarding, if you hire someone, you onboard them. So there's a human in the loop all the way. It's very much in the onboarding and how you use that. But the methodology that we have and the value that we have is that everything we're doing is around augmentation, not replacement. This is never going to replace people. This is never going to replace someone actually doing selling. But what it can do is it can really enhance some of the practices that go around that can be automated. And so we're just being really open and honest about it, Ben, to be honest.
Yeah.
What it is and what it isn't. We talked about judgment earlier. This, you should never be relying on judgment. It's just, if you want to use AI that way, we just don't believe in that. That's not kind of like the theory behind what we're trying to do. So it's very much in the onboarding phase, and we're just being really open about it. This is what it is. This is what it isn't. It's down to how you use it ultimately, but that's how we're just getting it all out in the open.
Yeah, yeah. So your strategy is not to try and automate an SDR
No.
and just go, yeah, great news. You don't need your SDRs anymore because we
Yeah.
can just this thing does that. Get rid of your SDR team, and this is going to automate just stupid amounts of volume
Yeah.
at super high quality. So you're not making that promise, which is refreshing
Yeah.
for sure. And then you've got in it where AI genuinely helps salespeople. So prep, insight, follow up, clarity, where humans still need to lead. That's I think that is that. So there's a level of automation in there, isn't there? So when you take a workflow
Yeah.
from a salesperson's perspective, how do you guys handle that type of workflow in terms of, well, what do we automate? What now? Because you mentioned no, we're not relying upon them to prompt it.
Yeah.
There's a level of automation there. How does that work, and where do you see that going if you're kind of still in building mode?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, like we said, the enhancement is And what can be automated is those things that embody actually going and selling. So a lot of the prep work, a lot of the research, those things can be scheduled. To your point before, in terms of trying to take an SDR out of the loop, you need somebody that's making the calls there as well. And you can't be reliant on the machine to do that, because that's not how they work. They don't have brains like us. They don't have empathy like we do. So you still need that human control. So in terms of where that goes, I mean, from our MVP, one of the things that we're going to be looking at from a sales perspective is email marketing. That's probably one of the big things that it's going to be focusing. So in terms of getting that scheduling and automation and what you want to be talking about, you can have a lot of control around that. And you mentioned replacing an SDR, but what if you don't have one? That's when this can be more helpful. Like if you don't have one, and perhaps you're a founder and sales is not your background, I think it can be very useful in that regard as well. But we're always going to come back to that point. Does that mean that I don't then need to hire a sales team? No, when the time's right, you absolutely should. But your sales team will be on steroids if you get this right. That's kind of the ethos.
Yeah. So I heard this really interesting stat that startups in Silicon Valley are starting up with 50% less humans needing to be employed to get the new venture, the new company off the ground.
Yeah.
And that made perfect sense, because if you're starting from scratch, you can just automate lots more of your workflows, because they can be designed to be automated, can be designed to be done and handled by AI. So and that's ultimately what an SME is, isn't it? It's a founder and literally no one else.
Yeah,
that's the starting point with.
I mean, in
for
some
most
cases,
of those businesses, right?
Yeah. I mean, going back to the conversation I had this morning, these guys were a little bit further down the track. There was a number of them, but they're still all wearing, every day's a school day in some regard. They're still all wearing multiple hats. That's where, something like this can really come. We talk about the term amplification. That's what they need. They need amplification. They need something that they can automate. And if you put an orchestration layer around that actually sorts workflows for you, that becomes quite attractive. That becomes quite an attractive proposition. And I think that's what the differentiator is, I think, compared to what's out there at the moment. A lot of people will say, well, why can't we just use ChatGPT? Well, you can, and you will, and you should. You'll continue to do that, just so long as you know that that's a different thing. That's something that's always going to need you to prompt it. Like you said, go and look at my emails. Oh, no, I can't do that. So we're adding that capability on top of that to start to bring some real cohesion, but workflow. That's the key word.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable, because I think as a founder myself these days, for about 10 years now, actually, what you need is workflows to just be going on in the background. You spend a lot of time setting these things up, and then you either, if you're an SME, you probably don't recruit. You're going to recruit the minimum number of full-time employees, but you're going to have a lot of contractors. And those contractors expect to be given the workflow. What are we doing? What's my brief?
Yeah.
And then I think what's exciting from an SME perspective is the ability for your contract people, say you've got somebody handling social media, which I do, somebody handling web, all those types of things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Them using AI is phenomenal, because they can then push out much more volume, and then and that integration between all of those social media platforms. I can tell you, trying to do it myself, it is a nightmare. You just miss stuff. Your workflow breaks down immediately.
Yeah. And that is a big area. I mean, that's part of the MVP, obviously, social media, because it's a big one. Because I lose count. I'm not really a big social media guy. I'm not a dinosaur either, but I'm not, whether we're TikToking or Instagramming, I don't know. But there's so many now. So how do you, and you need to be doing all of it, right? So how do you bring cohesion to that? How do you make sure that you're getting the scheduling right? A guy that I was speaking to a few weeks ago has got a football academy, really interesting. And all of his business is built off social media. And, he got to a point where he couldn't do this himself anymore. And he was spending a phenomenal amount of money on trying to make this happen. And I went, well, let's have a chat, because I think we can really help you with this. And, lo and behold, quick wins to be seen there, right? Because it just brings it all under one hood. There's that orchestration layer wrapped around it, and it's all going on. It's all happening. But you still maintain the control. It's not to a point where it gets out of control. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people, when they think about social media, they probably don't realize is, say if you look at my situation, I've got LinkedIn. I've been doing LinkedIn video for forever, basically.
Yeah.
On and off a bit, but generally that's how the business has grown. So you're focused on is impressions, which is eyeballs. How many people looked at the post for like a few seconds, and that's it. They went on to something else. And so that's relatively easy to manage as a founder. Okay, LinkedIn, and you're on the platform anyway. Then you bring TikTok into the mix, and then you bring Instagram into the mix, and then you bring YouTube into the mix, and then you bring in YouTube Shorts into the mix.
Yeah.
And then you might now be, because AI kind of like happens on X, you might have X in the mix as well.
Yeah.
What's going to happen, and what I think most people don't realize, is those platforms aren't free. They're free. If you're just a user and scrolling through, they're free. But if you're like a founder, like a business, you're normally having to pay a little bit of money to establish the brand on there. You're having to now pay a little bit of money to kind of boost posts if you're new to the platform, because otherwise, trust me, your stuff is going nowhere. And maybe if you became like, you're not Joe Rogan. It's not. This is not going to happen organically. And
what's the right strategy with that, right? Because what you're not is a social media expert or trained in it, and so there's a lot of money that can go into black holes there, right? Strategic insight around that as well is of value. And again, that's where I think AI can be delivering insights and should be.
And that's the piece that I think would be so valuable for founders is take the workload off me around all of that. That is a heavy lift. So doing 3 short posts, say video type stuff a week, is a heavy lift.
Yeah,
it's for sure. It's also there's also that cost involved, which I was just talking about. Something to help with that, even if you have a social media person who's either an employee or a contractor, even if you have someone like that involved, again, giving them the AI to help them do more, maybe more volume, get more analytics, get better at that, would be of real value. As if I was in your founding 50.
Agreed. Absolutely agree. And that's just one area.
Yeah.
What about, what about templates for consulting and services and things, all these things. And so, there's a lot there that I think can bring real quick value and alleviate pain that ultimately improves judgment. And I think that's where we have to get to as SME, owners.
Yeah, and then that kind of like click-through rate type metric is relatively easy for most founders to say, okay, my click-throughs to my website from Instagram was this, and you can get analytics on all of that. But it's like, but which post? Which post was the most successful? Right. What brings most value? Hopefully most people post.
It's a full-time job, Ben, isn't it?
It's absolutely a full-time job. And personally, what I did with the wonderful Charlotte, who handles my social media, is I said last year, which she reminded me of, was let's just focus on LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube. You can't. Instagram was really difficult to get Instagram into the mix.
That's interesting.
And then because I felt that.
What was the challenge, Ben?
I felt the challenge with Instagram was that you had a very different audience to a TikTok, and you sort of TikTok for somehow TikTok's really, really good, by the way. Once you take a look at it as a business, from a business perspective, rather than maybe a sort of natural aversion to it,
Yeah.
purely with from a business hat on, take a look at TikTok if you haven't looked at it and understand how it works. And I just felt it was a better platform to be able to see what was working versus what was not working much faster than Instagram.
Interesting. Okay.
Instagram just felt old school, bit tired. Because when you first launch on one of these platforms, you're not going to get hundreds of thousands of clicks. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And so you have to start making some insights out of a relatively small amount of volume of traffic on your content.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just found TikTok was easier to extract those insights from, even at sort of like, I don't know if it's the right term, but almost like at an anecdotal level, you could just see it.
Right.
If this post is more successful than another one. So yeah,
Okay.
that was it. And then I felt that long form video podcast was also a sensible route for me, and it's going to be
Yeah.
different for everybody, right? I'm not going to be jumping around doing crazy crap on TikTok, and so but that said, when I post stuff on there, and I'm still in my infancy on that platform, you know, you can see it's creating value for people. So
Yeah.
yeah, Insta. I just thought then your Instagram, Facebook. I was like, well, you probably like
Yeah.
get these platforms right first, then move to those, and then when you move to those other platforms, you've got a new set of workflows on your hands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And you can't ignore them, right? You can't ignore leveraging social media for your business today. I think those days are gone. You have to be all in. And like you say, you just reeled off an enormous workload.
Yeah.
And if it is just you, how do you ever go and get to have that FaceTime with it so precious with anyone because you're sat there doing that?
Yeah, yeah.
So these are all the reasons that sort of fed into. I think we need to sort of look at this because what's there at the moment it's not touching it. It's
Right.
not touching it.
So just look, I was keeping an eye on time as well. Let's the last 5 minutes. Where do you see things going next, Nathan, for 2026? What are the sort of milestones that you're talking about with your CEO for your business as you go through 2026? Because I guess the other factor that you've got in the mix here is the pace of everything just
Absolutely.
Was that
Absolutely.
still relevant,
Yeah.
what we spoke about last week?
Yeah. And then it is like that, isn't it?
This.
It is a bit like that. I mean, one of the things that when I came to this project, I was quite surprised by that when I took a look around from an AI workforce perspective, it's not a very crowded place. And I immediately felt it will be. So you talk about pace, we have to move quickly, but also not to contradict myself, remember this is about doing it right, not about doing it fast. So I think for 26, we really want to build out that founding 50. We want to build out that successful founder community, and not just founders, business leaders as well, because SMEs, it covers quite a broad sphere, doesn't it? From one person to 100. And I think this has got its use case there. So we want to build out, get that dialogue amongst founders where I think we're going to extract so much rich intel. But for that to be accessed, because ultimately what that's going to bring, we have an MVP, but we really want to put the blueprint of the product market fit into that so that when it goes live, and it will this year, we don't want to think we know. So that's what it's about for us for 26, really, is really understanding that, having built that successful, you've got our customers straight away because they've been part of building this. There's a sense of ownership and launching fully from there. That's the metrics for this year.
Yeah, that sounds really sensible, and I think that's another thing with a small business owner. You end up in a bit of a bubble by yourself,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
right.
quite nice to know what other people are thinking, the challenges they're facing, where there's
Yeah.
synergies. So that's really interesting, Nathan. Well, thank you. Where do people find you? Where's the best place to contact you, reach out?
So LinkedIn, you can find us on LinkedIn. So we are Helm AI. To sign up to the Founding 50 or even just request more information, you can get us at www.wearehelm.ai, or they can come direct to you, Ben. And
Yeah,
you've got my details, and we
that's
can have
right.
conversations. But it sounds like we may even need to have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation, because given
Yeah.
some of the things that you've talked through, you could be really influential in that Finding 50 community.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll have a little chat about that. That could be really interesting. And look, my mission is for this podcast to be as helpful as possible to people going through this AI journey.
Yeah,
And obviously, and for me, that's about growing your business. That's what
yeah,
AI
exactly.
should be. Should be
Yeah,
like all about really wonderful growth
that's
opportunities
the mission we have in
we
common,
didn't
isn't
have
it? That
before.
we all,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's where we're at. So
yeah.
yeah, let's have a chat about that. But look, Nathan, brilliant to see you, mate. Thank you for
Absolute
coming
pleasure,
on.
mate.
Really
Yeah,
enjoyed talking to you.
anytime.
And yeah, all the links and everything, go check out the show notes. And yeah, Nathan, thank you. We'll wrap it up there, shall we?
Thanks, Ben. All the best.
Thank you. Hey, everybody, sorry for the interruption, but if you are in a sales role or sales management role, head on over to bendrakes.com. You will find all of my training content, all really great videos that I've put together for you. There's also a bunch of free stuff. You can get all my free content, all my walks and talks. You'll get so much value from them. Maybe you want to talk about implementing AI in your business. Again, go to bendrakes.com. Go to my AI Catalyst page, book a call with me, and let's go through it. I'm giving everybody an introductory discount of a 20% off anything that you want to buy on my platform. Just put in the code SAVE20 at checkout.